Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your career and club. I'd like to welcome Mr. Marc Connerly as our presenter this morning. Mr. Connerly is the Vice President of Connerly and Associates, a Sacramento-based association management firm that runs 9 local and state trade associations, including 4 golf industry associations. Their golf industry clients include the California Golf Course Owners Association, the Golf Course Superintendents Association of Northern California, the Nevada Golf Course Owners Association, and the National Golf Owners Association of Arizona. Mr. Connerly has been the Executive Director of the California Golf Course Owners Association since May of 2013, and has overseen the growth of member courses from approximately 120 to nearly 250, approximately doubling the number of California Golf Course Owners Association sponsors and operating reserves as well, and a significant increased relevance, engagement, and a profile within the industry on the part of the California Golf Course Owners Association. Mr. Connerly, along with the SCGA's Director of Governmental Affairs, Craig Kessler, they have assumed co-leadership roles in the process of evaluating the viability of a California Golf Course Commission, an endeavor which the California Golf Course Owners Association has established as its top priority in 2017. Mr. Connerly, welcome to the Catalyst webinar series. Thank you for being here today.
John, thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. I will jump right into the presentation. This is a presentation that was originally about a 90-minute PowerPoint presentation that we did earlier this year, and I've kind of gradually pared it down for different audiences and for formats such as this. And today it should be about between a 30 and 45-minute presentation. And before I jump into the slides, what I will do is just give you a little bit of background and history on the commission and how we got to where we are today. The idea for a commission really came from Ted Horton, and hopefully all of you are very familiar with Ted. I personally consider him an icon in this industry, but for those who maybe aren't, he's a very well-known, well-respected superintendent who got his start in New York, came out to California and was superintendent at Pebble Beach for many years, eventually was the first executive director of the California Golf Course Owners Association when it formed back in the late 90s. And Ted was very involved and engaged and one of the leaders in the California golf industry for many years. And so in that role, or in those roles as a leader, he sat on a number of state commissions and boards, including one at for the University of California. And while serving on this particular board, he noticed that a number of others who were on the board, primarily from agriculture, had a great deal of influence and persuasion in these meetings. And after one of the meetings, Ted asked one of his colleagues on the board, on this particular board, how they have that much influence. What gives them the ability to have so much say-so? And I believe it was the avocado industry, and he was told by them that they have an avocado commission, and that really gave their particular industry a certain credibility before state agencies and a certain stature. And so that's how the idea of a golf industry commission or board was hatched, and the idea more or less rested with Ted for many years. I think he shared it with Craig and a few others, but it really didn't go too far until the fall of 2014, when Ted really pushed the issue more aggressively before CAG at one of their board meetings. In fact, down at the SCPGA office in Ontario. And at that meeting, CAG agreed to form an ad hoc committee that would kind of vet this issue and discuss it. That committee included Ted and Craig Kessler and Steve Plummer of Championship Golf Services down out of Corona, and Michael Lautenbach with the City of Anaheim's Golf Division, Jim Farron, who is one of the leaders on the superintendent side of things up here in the Sacramento area, and myself. And we met by phone once a week for about 6 months in early 2015. We developed a white paper, developed a question and answer page. We even had a very skeletal piece of legislation drafted so that we had some materials that we could share with people. As we researched and vetted this concept, we used that knowledge to form these documents, and then began the process of kind of sharing it with a few stakeholders throughout the state. I met with Kemper Sports, Craig and Ted and some others met with a Corsco representative down in Southern California. We shared it with the CMAA and a few others. And so kind of that's really what took place for the first 2 years of this ad hoc committee, 2015 and 2016. And then finally at the outset of this year, I really realized it was really time to take this to a broader audience. And so we conducted a total of 10 workshops throughout the state. Those were the 90-minute presentations I was referring to. We had 4 in Northern California and 6 in Southern California. We shared the presentation with about, I think it was roughly 100 attendees at those 10 events, representing roughly 150 courses. And the intent of the workshops really was to get a sense of what was the industry's reaction to this idea. Were they in favor of it? Were they opposed to it? Were they on the fence? And I would say, by and large, the largest percentage were probably somewhere in the middle. They were on the fence. They still had questions. They were neither willing to commit in favor of it, but they weren't adamantly against it. We had only one person out of the whole 100 or so who said, no, I don't like this, and that was for philosophical reasons. And then we had roughly, I think it was roughly 30 or 40% who said, yes, I'm all for this, and let's pursue it. So since that time, we've shared it a little more in detail with CAG. We've brought in a number of stakeholder groups from throughout the state, formed a task force that is now trying to really hash out the details. That task force has met twice, and we're in the process of trying to find a facilitator who will lead the third and future meetings. And we hope to meet again in June and continue the process of trying to really reach some details that everybody can agree on. So that's kind of the quick overview of what's happened on this front over the last 2.5 years. So jumping into the slides, really the why. Why would we want to form something like this? And it's fairly simple. I mean, I think that everybody within the industry would agree that the golf has and is facing some very fundamental and very significant challenges. Rounds are flat. I don't think any course is seeing greater demand than they can handle, and few are seeing much of a growth in rounds. It's no secret that it's difficult to attract new golfers. We're all trying to appeal to the millennials and to different segments of society, to women and others and juniors, and there are many great programs out there, but it's tough to fill that pipeline as some of the older golfers leave the game. We're barely keeping pace and really barely keeping up with backfilling the golfers that we're losing. There are limited sustainability resources. There's really only one golf researcher in the state. That's Dr. Jim Baird, turf researcher, Dr. Jim Baird at the UC Riverside campus, and he is regularly passing the hat around looking for more funding to support his efforts. There's also an initiative now to fund a turf research position at the Cal Poly San Luis Obispo campus, But again, as an industry, we're forced to pass the hat around to try to raise the $60,000 or so annually to fund that position. So again, it's no secret that there's limited availability of funds for turf research and water reclamation programs, things of that sort. Again, no secret, the public image of golf is not what we would like it to be. There's the image that it's too elitist, that it's a white male sport, that it's too expensive, too time-consuming, etc. And we really need to change that image in the public consciousness, in the minds of elected officials, and to do that, it'll take funds and resources. And then legislatively and before regulatory agencies, we also face numerous challenges. The drought is over, but it's no secret that droughts are cyclical. We will have another water crisis in the future, and it's important to try to share our message of how little water golf really uses, and to share the message of how environmentally conscious we are. We face wage increases over the next few years with the minimum wage increasing. We face tax burdens and property tax threats on an ongoing basis, and labor laws are constantly changing in favor of labor and very often against management and ownership. And then finally, there's the whole issue of third-party booking and eroding tee time rates. So those are kind of the 10,000-foot issues that the industry faces that really can't be addressed by on a compartmentalized or ad hoc basis. It really takes an entire industry to address some of these issues. John, I'm trying to advance my screen here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So a golf course commission, what is it? It's essentially a revenue generator and revenue management entity for the industry with the purpose of managing and overseeing the solutions to the problems I just discussed with you. That's really all it is. It's a way to get everybody in the state engaged in addressing those problems we just discussed. We currently have a system that's not very effective, and that is we pass the hat around. We ask voluntarily for courses and the PGA pros and the superintendents and the amateur associations, etc., to fund initiatives to fight a minimum wage increase, or to fight a sales tax, or to promote women's programs or junior golf programs or things of that sort, or turf research. But it's a very ineffective way. It's not a sustainable way of funding the activities and programs to fight some of the core challenges of the industry. So this is a way that would compel every stakeholder in the state, essentially every golf course, to participate and to help fund the solutions to those needs that I just addressed. Let's get right to the math of what it is. Essentially, the commission would be funded by an assessment on public green fees, municipal and daily fee courses. So it's proposed that it would be a 0.25% fee on rounds. So for a $25 green fee, you're looking at 6.25 cents. For a $100 green fee, it's going to be 25 cents. So we're talking about a very small number, but because of the sheer volume of the transactions in the state, we can accumulate a pretty nice annual war chest. Additionally, we are proposing that there would be a 0.25% surcharge or assessment on private facility membership dues. And so if the dues at a particular facility are $1,000 per month, that works out to $2.50 a month or $30 a year. So again, we're talking about a very small number on a per transaction basis. And I'll get into a little bit later how much we think that will accumulate over the course of a year. And I'll also share with you now that one of the questions that comes up is, well, does it apply to food and beverage? Does it apply to retail sales? Does it apply to cart rentals? And the answer to all of the above is no. It's strictly green fees or membership dues. And even in the case of membership dues, we've heard the argument, well, that some membership dues also cover some other things, maybe food and beverage or cart rentals or range fees. And so as part of this whole vetting process, this task force, we'll certainly be taking a look at maybe on $1,000 monthly dues, maybe only 60% is attributable to green fees. So maybe it would be 0.25% on 60% of membership dues or something along those lines. So before I get into a little more deeply into what the Golf Course Commission some of the details of the Golf Course Commission, I'll share with you a few examples of kind of what I alluded to earlier when I talked about Ted Horton and his involvement and the Avocado Commission, for example. The agricultural industry has formed a number of these commissions. I think there are somewhere many more than 20, and may even be more than 30 of these commissions and boards. There's an almond board, an avocado commission, a California cut flower commission, milk advisory board, raisin advisory board, wine commission, and the list goes on. And so we're really following in the footsteps of something that has been tried and proven and has been very successful for a number of other industries. And so we're not really blazing a trail here. We're not, I wouldn't say we're taking a huge risk and trying to do something that hasn't been done before. We're trying to do something that has been done. And it would be technically a state agency, but it would be entirely controlled by our industry. The funds, the state would not have any access to the funds. The state would not have a seat on this commission. It's really only a state agency in the sense that it would be mandated by state law if we get the legislation passed, and the state would have some oversight to make sure that we are doing what we set out to do and what we said we would be doing in the original legislation. And I trust that if you have any questions that you're typing them in your chat box and sending them to John, and John will either forward them to me at the appropriate time in the presentation. I'm happy to stop and answer questions, or he will save them towards the end if that's more appropriate. In addition to the agricultural industry solutions, there's the Travel and Tourism statewide agency, which has visitcalifornia.com, that's charged with promoting California as a travel destination. There's a California Film Commission that's charged with promoting California as a venue for the production of motion pictures. And then we have many local business improvement districts, hotel room taxes that take a fee from customers and then use those fees to make capital improvements in a particular area or to promote that area as a destination. So again, it's a method for promoting business and developing business that's been tried at the state level as well as at local levels. So to talk just a little bit about the California Raisin Marketing Board, this comes from their website. It's a grower-funded organization to support and promote the use of California-grown raisins. Their mission is to conduct market development activities to improve the demand for all categories of raisin usage. They sponsor crop production, nutrition, and market research, and they create a positive marketing environment within which the industry can collectively expand the worldwide demand for California raisins. So if you look at those four bullet points regarding the California Raisin Marketing Board, I think you can see some similarities to what we would love to be able to do in the golf industry, promoting California golf courses, conducting market development activities to maybe to find out how we can attract more millennials, how we can get current golfers to golf more often, how we can appeal to juniors, etc. Sponsoring turf research, sponsoring research into water reclamation or water recycling projects, and then changing that whole public image. So it's I think very similar in many ways to what we would love to be able to do for golf in California. Another example, which I think again is very similar to golf, is the Almond Board of California. They invest over $2 million a year into farming technologies. A couple of years ago, they funded 13 water projects and 9 honeybee health projects. And then directly from their website, they say that scientific evidence suggests that eating 1.5 ounces per day of most nuts, such as almonds, may reduce the risk of heart disease. So they're talking about the health benefits of almonds. And on their website, they talk about almond life cycle and history, sustainability, health benefits, and they have a significant amount of space on their website devoted to water conservation and dispelling the perceptions about almonds and water. Again, I don't think it is much of a reach to say that there are a lot of similarities there between what they are promoting and what we would love to be able to promote. And they're able to do this, again, through the funds that they raise by a very small surcharge that goes into the price of almonds. It's charged to the almond producers and almond growers. I think it was something along the lines of 5 cents per pound of almonds, and that is just factored into every can you buy, and it pays for these types of activities and programs. So again, I really already touched on kind of some of the similarities between raisins and golf, and it's the same thing with almonds. The need to grow sales, research, talking about the health benefits, and changing the public perceptions. But additionally, if we had the resources, we could talk about the charitable benefits of golf, the billions of dollars that golf raises nationally through charitable tournaments, etc. The recreational benefits of golf. The benefits to the environment, preserving green space, etc. The opportunity to spend time with family and also to network and form business bonds on the golf course, and the benefits of property values. One anecdote I'll share is last year in Arizona, the Arizona golf industry completed an economic impact study that showed a lot of the typical numbers you'd expect to see from an environmental impact study regarding the number of jobs and the economic contribution of the industry. But one of the numbers that really jumped out at me was the amount of increase to property values that was attributable to golf courses in Arizona, and that number was $2 billion. Which is really impressive, and that's a number that resonates well and really comes across very effectively to elected officials. You share a number like that with the legislature or with a city council or board of supervisors, and they're going to sit up and take notice that hey, our golf courses are raising property values to the tune of $2 billion, and if you pass onerous regulations or restrict our water use or impose restrictions or regulations that harm us and could potentially put us out of business, there is a very real impact on the community. the who and the how of the California Golf Course Commission. First of all, it would, because what we're trying to do is create a mandate where we're trying to say, look, everybody needs to participate in this. We have to pass a law. So it requires legislative approval following the drafting of a bill and selection of a bill author. Once the legislation is passed, then all of the courses statewide who would be asked to collect this assessment from the golfers would have to vote that they are in support of this commission. So really there are two approval steps that need to be gone through, two hoops, before this entity could be formed. Once the legislation is passed, once the vote is passed, then there would be an election of commissioners, and those would be industry representatives. We foresee that the state would be divided into districts, and there would be one or two representatives from each district. Those representatives would, in all likelihood, be the owner or the owner's designated representative from a golf course, and then also there would be some seats for the various constituencies of the industry. So the PGA pros would certainly have one or two seats. The superintendents would have one or two. The amateur bodies would have one or two seats, and those are all some details that would need to be worked out during this vetting process that we're going through now with the task force. Also, there would be certainly a mix of representatives from muni courses, from daily fee courses, and from private courses. And then it would be up to the commissioners to determine what the actual assessment would be. We've been using this 0.25% number, but in all likelihood, the legislation would be drafted so that there's a range of percentages that they can choose to assess in a given year. So if in a given year, let's say there was some legislation which the industry was strongly against, and we felt like we really needed to have more resources in advocacy, we needed to hire more lobbyists, they could say, okay, we'll raise the assessment this year to 0.5% and agree to dedicate more resources to lobbying. They could do that. If in a given year they felt that for whatever reason they wanted to reduce the percentage down to 0.25% or 0.1%, if that was authorized in the legislation, they would have the authority to do that. So even though 0.25% is the number that we're really using, at the end of the day, the legislation is probably going to have some range in there in order to give the commission as much flexibility as possible to raise the necessary resources. And that idea for creating a range comes from some of the research that we've done in talking to other commissions, specifically the California Cut Flower Commission. I sat down and did an interview with their executive director, and he shared with us that they have a range of values that they can assess each year. Now, and this is something that, even though I always emphasize this as maybe the most important point of this entire presentation, it still seems to get lost sometimes, and that is that the courses will be collecting the fee from the golfers at the counter. It is not expected to come out of the course budget. If you have a $100 green fee, the golfer will pay $100.25, and the course will continue to receive every penny that it currently receives, and the golfer will be paying this. The course will simply be collecting it, just like they do a sales tax, and then forwarding it to the commission quarterly or biannually, however often is decided to be the most optimal. But again, the course is expected to be a collection entity. There are some courses with whom I've spoken who have said, well, we'll just take it out of our advertising budget and we'll just pay it, and we won't add anything to the bottom of the ticket. That certainly is one option, but we're not intending it for that to be the way that it's handled. It'll be very similar to a transient occupancy tax that hotels collect. And then ultimately, the commissioners, the commission itself, would decide how the funds will be spent. So we've talked about turf research and marketing, promoting the game, changing the public image of the game, advocacy, and again, the legislation will probably give the commission some parameters within which they must operate. So the legislation at the end of the day may say something along the lines of at least 10% must go to turf research, at least 10% annually must go to advocacy, and at least 10% must go to marketing. And then the commission would have some authority to choose how much in a given year goes to each of those buckets. But CAG could apply for funding on an annual basis for advocacy. The SCPGA could, if they had a new program that they wanted to fund, they could apply for funding. They could apply for funding to promote Get Golf Ready more heavily, or if there was a particular junior program, courses in a particular market, if Palm Springs, or if some group of courses on the coast or anywhere wanted to band together and say, hey, let's apply for $100,000 to market to our local community. We have this program we think would work. They could apply for funding, and then the commission could decide on whether or not the funding seemed like a good use of the funds. And then it's also important to know that there would be a referendum, a vote every 5 years by the industry whether to continue this commission or not. So there is some accountability there, and if for some reason the industry felt that the commission was not satisfying its mission, the money was not being used effectively, and we weren't getting the results, they could vote it out and it would go away. So the risk is limited by the fact that the industry could overturn this and revoke this commission every 5 years. So really, kind of in summary, what would the commission do? It would create programs for marketing and promoting golf. It would fund advocacy such as CAG, such as the state clubs associations lobbying efforts. We could even sponsor legislation. I think one of the missions of our industry in the coming years should be trying to get courses off of the potable water grid. And if we can find funding for reclamation projects, recycling projects, through legislation, through grant money, either at the state or federal level, it would behoove us to do so, and it may take legislation to accomplish that. In my conversation with the California Cut Flower Commission, he said that they really gained as an industry, the cut flower industry gained a much greater presence and credibility before state elected officials and regulatory bodies when they created the Cut Flower Commission. So a golf course commission, as it's now being called, would give us, as an industry, much greater access, relevance, and credibility with elected officials. And then finally, sustainability, developing a drought-tolerant turf species. Again, trying to create more opportunities for water recycling projects, relieving the funding burden on current industry groups that are heavily funding CAG, SCPGA, SCGA, NCGA, all contribute a healthy sum each year, 5 figures a year, to fund CAG. And I'm sure those entities, organizations, would love to be able to direct those funds to other programs if they so chose. CGCOA, the Superintendent's Association, also contribute, although not at the level that the other three do. And then down the road, we could even, if we had a nest egg of several $1 million a year coming into our industry, maybe we could find ways to address the third-party issue and try to change the status quo as it relates to Golf Now and others who are who are doing some things that are detrimental to the industry. And then finally, the Cut Flower Commission also mentioned that their commission gave them even a greater presence at the federal level. They've worked with Congress and created a cut flower caucus that is charged with really kind of encouraging the use of domestically grown flowers and trying to restrict imported flowers into the country at the peril of domestic flower growers. So there's the opportunity there that we could even have some impact and some relevance and credibility at the federal level. And then these last three slides really get into some of the frequently asked questions about the commission. Who will serve on the commission? Again, I kind of talked about that. It would be owners or owners representatives from golf courses, and then the various trade associations throughout the state would also have representation. The state will have no seat on the commission. The state will also have no say over how the money is spent, other than that we're spending it in accordance with the way the legislation is drafted. Will there be any state oversight of the commission? Yes, in the sense that we would be under the State Department of Food and Agriculture, and they would essentially just ensure that we are operating in accordance with the law, and that any elections, any commissioner elections that take place are conducted legally. Will they have any access to the assessment funds? Absolutely not. The commission would have its own bank account, private bank account, and the state would have absolutely no access to those funds or say over how the funds are spent. Would the state charge any expense or take any percentage for the oversight? And again, no, they would take nothing out of the funds that we raise. And the last question here on this slide again is really trying to reiterate that this would not cost the golf course anything. It would be an add-on at the bottom of the ticket, just like the hotels add on a very small fee for travel and convention promotion. How much is the commission expected to raise each year? Using, again, that 0.25% assessment amount that we've been using as kind of our expected assessment, we think it would raise about $3.5 to $4 million a year. So that is it's an estimate, but it's a pretty, I think it's a pretty conservative estimate. I think there's the potential that it will raise more, and certainly it's a huge increase in the amount of money that would be available to CAG, for example, to fund advocacy efforts. CAG right now operates on a budget of $100,000 a year, give or take. And even if there was only 10% of this annual fund allocated to advocacy and CAG, that's $400,000, which would be a sustainable resource. We wouldn't have to pass the hat around to the SCPGA and other associations looking for money every year. Turf research, again, I think Dr. Baird is operating on couple $100,000 maybe a year, and if he had another $400,000, it would be huge. So there are some who say, well, $4 million is just a drop in the bucket when it comes to marketing in a state the size of California. That's true, but it's certainly a heck of a lot more than we have now. Could the commission raise the fee without restriction? No, there would be a restriction placed within the original legislation. So again, that number is yet to be determined. It could be a maximum of a 1% assessment. It could be 0.5%. It could be 0.25%. But whatever that limit is that's incorporated into the legislation would be the limit. The commission could not unilaterally decide to assess some 2% or outrageous assessment that the industry had not already approved. And is the commission a permanent entity? No. Again, it's goes through a referendum vote every 5 years. And I missed the third question there. Will there be any assessment on cart rentals, food and beverage, pro shop sales, et cetera? No, it would only apply to public green fees and private membership dues. Now, I will add on to that a couple of notes. There have been suggestions that, well, in addition to green fees, why shouldn't Club Car and E-Z-Go and Toro and all the big manufacturers pay into this? And at this point, I don't think that's going to happen. Number one, we want to keep this as simple as possible. Number two, the more we try to expand the assessment pool into other entities and organizations and businesses, the more we run the risk of attracting opponents to this who maybe have the capability to defeat it. Number three is that a lot of those entities are really the major source of revenue for some of them from the trade associations in the state, whether we're talking CMAA or CGCOA or the superintendents associations. And if they're now asked to pay a fee, I can almost guarantee you that many of them will take that out of the budget that they're now using to fund some of those associations. And I think that the detriment to those associations would far exceed the benefit that the commission would receive. So I think there are a number of reasons why, at least for the time being, I think we should stay away from trying to assess manufacturers. The other question that's come up is, well, should we be assessing driving ranges? Should we be assessing Topgolf facilities, for example? And I think that's still open for discussion. I don't think that necessarily it's a horrible idea, but again, I think we need to vet that as part of this vetting process. Again, we need to talk about how much money would be raised by a facility such as Topgolf. How much benefit would they get out of it, because they don't have turf, for example, so they don't have the need for turf research. But I think there is an argument that can be made there, and again, that's something that will be determined out of this whole vetting process. So that is the end of my slides. I'm more than happy now to take any questions and clarify anything.
Mr. Connerly, thank you very, very much for your time, and there's a wealth of information there. I do have some questions that have come in.
Okay.
Why the language of assessment versus tax when you're talking about the 25% of one, the 25% of 1%? Okay,
good question. First of all, a tax, and I when we started this process, in fact, I looked up the definition of a tax. We all know what a tax is in theory, but a tax technically goes to the government. It goes to a state or local or federal entity. This does not go to those government entities who then would be able to take it and use it, to some effect that may have no benefit to the industry. This stays within the industry, and we can then turn around and use it strictly for our industry and not have it go off into the ether as part of some general fund. So when you talk about, for example, business improvement districts, they also refer to it as an assessment. You may hear the term property tax assessment that's used for creating new landscaping in a community or new streetlights, things of that sort. So it doesn't go to the state. It goes right back into our industry, and it's a term that has been used by other similar assessment districts or other similar programs.
Okay, and how do you see the marketing effort in California being implemented?
ultimately, at the end of the day, that will be determined by the commission. I personally like the idea of marketing. I think that if we can fund commercials and advertisements within the state that promote the play of golf, that promote families getting out and playing, that promote the recreational benefits and the health benefits, I see a lot of value in that. And I also think that funding marketing efforts is really truly an investment in the commissioned funds, because if we market and those marketing efforts are successful, then the rounds grow, green fees grow, and the funds that we raise grows. So by marketing, we're investing in the fund, which then can provide more funding to turf research and advocacy. In the long term, I could even see advertising campaigns outside of the state to promote California as a golf destination. As an example, in the 90-minute presentation I gave, I included some slides that talked about a trip I took to, actually two different trips I took. One was to Chicago, one was to South Carolina. And on both of those trips, while I was in my hotel room, I saw advertisements for California walnuts, for visitcalifornia.com, and for California grapes. Two different states, two entirely different trips. There were these commercials advertising these industries within California. And I thought how wonderful it would be to be sitting in a hotel room halfway across the country or all the way across the country and seeing commercials promoting California golf as a destination. So personally, I love the idea of those types of programs. Practically speaking, as we've gone through the due diligence process and shared this with different stakeholders, there are some stakeholders who really are not in favor of the marketing. They are heavily in favor of advocacy and maybe turf research, and on the marketing end, they aren't as excited about the idea of trying to drive rounds. They're more excited about the idea of trying to maybe shape the image of golf, trying to maybe have some messaging around the fact that golf is a welcoming industry, that it doesn't use much water, that we are environmentally friendly, and some of those public image issues. So kind of to conclude this very long answer, the way I probably seeing it shaping up marketing wise would be at the outset, we would probably focus on public image. Maybe a few years down the road, 3-5 years down the road, maybe there will be some marketing within the state. And then maybe long term, maybe more of a 10-year goal, let's say, maybe then we could start to see some messaging nationwide promoting California as a golf destination. That's kind of my vision, but again, it's all, at the end of the day, I'm not going to have a vote. It's really going to be the commissioners.
The question actually came up referring to the California Almond Board, which is already advertising on radio, and was curious if marketing efforts for us would follow along the same lines.
Yeah, again, I would think so. I would think there would be a variety of campaigns. You'd probably see TV campaigns, radio campaigns, print, social media. I would expect that the commission would hire some type of a marketing expert, public relations expert, who would advise us on the best way to reach our target audience.
Okay, very well. Mr. Connerly, thank you very, very much for your time in putting this presentation together and making time for the Southern California PGA this morning. We greatly do appreciate it. For all the attendees on this morning's Catalyst webinar, the quiz will be going out here shortly. Please take the quiz and return it to Sharon Kirkman at pgahq.com. a score of 70% or higher will earn 1 MSR credit for attending this morning's presentation. The YouTube feed will also be included in the quiz email that goes out here shortly. Mr. Connerly, thank you very, very much for your time today, and wish everybody a great Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.